good afternoon. I'd like to thank everyone for coming. We've made kind of an annual tradition of trying to meet with all of the media in the community to go over the release of our fiscal year budget. And this fiscal year for FY11 and 12, it's a two-year biennium budget, has been one of the more difficult budgets. And the document will be released today. It's on the intranet, will be up on the internet this afternoon, as well as available for city staff this afternoon. I want to provide just some highlights of the budget and a little bit of the strategy of how we came up with the fiscal year 11 and 12 budget. First, the total budget for the city is $261 million. But most of that money is in proprietary funds or special revenue funds. The fund that's most important to how city services are provided for fire, for police, for planning is what we call the general fund. The general fund, based on the needs, should total $105 million for fiscal year 11 and $108 million for fiscal year 12. That is before decrements. Fiscal year 11 and 12 continue a trend which began in 2006 of substantially decreasing revenues. From fiscal year 07 through fiscal year 10, the city has cut $11 million out of our general fund. Those were organizational efficiencies, actual reductions in services, changes to the way we do business, a very substantial reduction, and that included a total reduction of 43 full-time equivalent positions. Our 5-year revenue forecast for the next 5 years doesn't look a lot better. Our revenues are flat. Many of you have heard our property tax revenues have actually gone down a little bit in fiscal year 11. They're not projected to grow a lot over the 5-year period. Transfers from GRU are leveling out. Our state shared revenue is not projected to grow. So we don't see in the next 5-year period a lot of change for our budget status, particularly relative to revenues. Now, as we look at that 5 years, the most important aspect of our budget is really what's happening in the next 2 years. We adopt a biennial budget, so fiscal year 11 and 12 are very important to us. By state statute, cities have to have a balanced budget. So we don't get the choice of running a deficit like the federal government. So the 2-year budget that I'm providing to the members of the City Commission and the mayor is balanced and assumes no new revenue. In a strategic planning session in January with the commission, we discussed whether I should include or any assumptions of revenue, and the commission agreed that because of the timing of the discussion of the fire assessment or any discussion of other revenue sources, that my budget would be prepared assuming that it is balanced based on reductions to current services and corresponding reductions in expenditures. I want to talk about a few kind of factoids before we get into the kind of the meat of what I'm recommending. And they're important factoids because they really form the basis or the foundation of your city government. One, when you get your tax bill as a city resident, people should be aware that out of that total bill, 18.4% of your bill reflects what you're paying for your city services. Sometimes it's easy to look at the bill and say, oh, if you're a city resident, and say, I'm paying all this for my services, when in actuality, only 18% of whatever that number is for your home is your city taxes. Gainesville has the highest percentage of property that is non-taxed of any city in the state, and probably one of the higher percentage in the nation. Only 46% of the property in the city is actually taxed. So most is not taxed. Of our peer cities, we have the 4th lowest tax rate of all of the 12 cities that are in the $80,000 to $140,000 or so range that we have, within Florida, we have the fourth lowest tax rate. We have the second lowest taxable value of our peers, and that includes Lakeland, which is a population of about 80,000. So yes, they have a little bit lower taxable value, but they're also much smaller than us. So we've received the lowest amount of revenue from property tax of any of our peers. And that's a combination of so much property off the tax roll. For fiscal year 2011, the city's taxable base declined by 5.4%, or about $1.7 million. So when we look at the general fund, and this is the fund that is really most important to city taxpayers, city employees, and is most important to the services that we will receive as city residents. In the general fund, we are projecting a total general fund expenditure for FY11 of $98,312,000. That is a balanced general fund. That amount goes up in FY12 to $99,775,000. The two-year deficit that we had to overcome to get to that point was $8.3 million. So we had a deficit within our general fund of the projected expenditures and compared to our revenues of $8.3 million. So as staff, and I've been very fortunate to have some great people helping to craft this budget. Employees at all levels have really participated, but certainly Becky Roundtree, Mark Benton, Paul Folkers, Fred Murray, all have helped and all the department directors have provided options to try to navigate through this, really very difficult time. We've provided a budget to the City Commission that tries to look strategically at aligning our revenues and expenditures for the long term. We're not recommending short-term solutions because we believe that our problems are long-term and we need to resolve those issues with long-term strategies. A few things that are in the fiscal year 11 and 12 budget. There are no raises recommended in fiscal year 11. One of the issues driving our gap in funding, our deficit, is the market correction in our pension portfolio, which occurred really in late 2008. We had some recovery in fiscal year and calendar year 2009. But because of the way our actuary accounts for the funding and the market value of our assets, we need to budget more to replenish the market value of our assets. That's approximately $3 million of general fund that's part of that $8.3 million deficit to bring the market value back up to where it needs to be. The transfer from GRU has been reduced. It's based on conservation. We really want to celebrate that. Our community has really enacted a number of conservation measures that has made a difference in the amount of utilities, water, sewer, electricity that are used by the community. But it has a converse effect that there's a little bit less revenue for the city for running city services. And then certainly the economic slowdown has also impacted GRU revenues. So what are some of the actions to balance the budget in fiscal year 11? I've proposed reductions that total about $8.3 million, or actually about $8.6 million total. Because all of those reductions are damaging to our organization, but some really make a dramatic difference on the services we provide. I've tried to tier those reductions, beginning with the impactful but survivable and damaging cuts, going to the kind of cuts that will have to be done if there are no other revenues to offset these reductions, but they will be very damaging to our direct services that we provide as a city. Within the budget, and each of you will receive a copy of this or have received a copy of the budget, we are proposing to eliminate 91 positions. Out of those positions, 43.75 are filled. Now, the good news is that we have been very diligent over the last 2 years, keeping most positions that have come open through attrition, through retirements, vacant. We've left, with the exception of police and fire, just about every position that's come open in the last 2 years, we have left open. We've not filled those positions. So we're able to help balance this budget by eliminating a number of vacant positions. And although the services those individuals provided will be missed, we've been learning how to live without those individuals and been able to continue to provide the service at a generally very good level. Some examples of the Tier 3 reductions, and Tier 3 is our most damaging level of reduction. A fire engine will be taken out of service. That would include the elimination of 11 full-time equivalent positions. Those are positions we need to provide a good level of service, but if you do not have the revenue, sometimes you don't have the choice in how to provide the service. We'll be reducing the number of detectives that we have and following up, investigating crimes. We'll be consolidating our after-school programs, reducing the number of physical locations that we provide after-school care and programs for young children. We'll be reducing the number of school crossing guards. We'll be reducing the number of school resource officers. We'll reallocate personnel, most likely from an engine on Station 1 in GFR, to staff the new Station 8 that will be opening later this year.